moly.
For the students, this is what happens when you reach our age. You start thinking about how many years do you have to deal with all this tech.
Hey, Jared, how are you doing? Thank you so much for being here.
She's going to hang on. When you reach our age.
You like that, huh?
I'm close to Cindy. Cindy and I are.
I'm not that old.
I am pretty certain I'll win the age game. I am
41.
31 days from 60.
Yeah, I think you win the age game. Yep.
You got me beat by a little bit.
Can you hear me?
Who's talking, Jared?
Yeah, you can hear me?
I can hear you great. Okay, so what I'm going to do, since all of us quote-unquote experts are loudmouth, I'm going to mute everybody except for who is presenting just for the first initial. Look at Jake shaking his head like, yeah, you better.
Actually, no, I was laughing because I'd just soon have everybody interrupt me. It wouldn't bother me a bit.
Oh, well, heck, okay. I'll do that then. Hang on. Okay, hang on, y'all. Don't you love firewalls? Okay, yeah. Hang on, I'm getting my backup recording coming. And then we will get started. For my students, if y'all could mute yourself and also get the questions that we've been working on for after the expert.
How do I get the volume to work?
Present. Who just said, how do I get the volume to work?
It worked.
Whoever just said that, it's working.
Happened to my.
You need a lot of.
I love you guys so much. Okay. Screen, record. Okay, we are recording. Awesome, guys. Welcome to our expert meeting. And first of all, I cannot thank my experts enough for being here. You guys rock. One of the huge things that this particular EDTL course has been looking at is the difference between instructional technologists and information technologists, and how that even if you are one, you very often have to wear the hat of both. So I've gotten some panel members together, some experts, some of which are graduates of the same program that y'all are in, some of which I went to school with. Tammy and I got our doctorates together, and some of which are in an instructional technology role, but also do information technology, some of which are paid to do information technology, but of course have to do instructional technology. So the purpose of this class is really to look at how IT and IT can really work together, and hopefully use that going forward in our careers. So Mr. Ragusa, can you please start us off?
All right, well, the slide is just kind of me showing some of the different interpretations of the levels of security. PII is one of our favorite terms these days, personally identifiable information, and that, along with our data security, our network security, student privacy, are items that create a web of all of our technology resources, because virtually all of the instructional programs require some amount of PII to run. And so it's really a team effort to try to secure these systems and keep the data protected, which is also part of keeping the students and the schools protected. You know, it is, I like the so-called experts label that Cindy gave us earlier. I like to consider myself a so-called expert. I feel I'm an expert on nothing because, as was recently stated earlier, we have to do all kinds of things to keep this going. So we try to keep ourselves as up to date as we can, and you know, we work hard to do the things that are necessary. But I don't say that I am a security expert, but I am somebody who worries about security a great deal, and I think that is a good thing for our school district that I worry about it. So, let's get rid of the pictures and we'll move on to my next slide. And it just basically says that, all of this security of data and information has many layers. I don't get in the argument. Some people say there's 3, some 4, some 7, there's 8. Everybody's got a different number of layers. I don't care. I read all their stuff because everybody's talking about different things to help us understand what we need to do to make things better. In Ascension, something that we do that a lot of districts do now is require our contracts to include a lot of information about what a vendor can and cannot do with our student information. We also include in that, because we've been cited for ADA violations in the past, a requirement, a set of requirements on ADA that we sometimes have to negotiate because our requirements are stricter than all of the vendors can. It's our goal. It's what we'd like, where we'd like everybody to be. But sometimes there's a product we want to use that doesn't meet our goals and we have to negotiate a space. But we start with a document that lists all of our goals. The main thing for us, I look at 6 different things and I can put 20 things under each of those things. Awareness, training, that is just the absolute most important thing. We just had a virus that for some reason made it through our email earlier this week. And the end users who received it, rather than clicking on it, actually replied to the person that sent it and said, the subject makes sense, but I'm not certain this message makes sense. And turned out they were false messages from a KidMed provider that a lot of us deal with. And it was actually passed around the state, and a bunch of us, we had it come into 4 different people. And we track all that, and then we try to figure out why it end up in somebody's inbox. How did they get it? Because the most common way student privacy is, okay, I'm gonna say this 2 ways. The most common way student privacy is relinquished is willfully by a teacher or administrator who doesn't understand the rules. Unfortunately, that seems to me to be the most common method, where they send stuff in an email or in some document or notice that shouldn't have been released. I wish that didn't happen, and we do. I think that's 100 times better in most districts than it was 10 years ago, but it does still happen, unfortunately. And then the second one is when someone takes control of a device through some type of malware. But then it gets way bigger than that. Yeah, we publish a cybersecurity update to our teachers and staff every month, but that doesn't mean they're going to always remember. But we hope. They're people. We go to the next slide. I think I already covered the first one, awareness. Endpoint devices. That's where, believe it or not, security has to reside in so many different ways. IoT, our Internet of Things. Everything has a security part to it now. Our video cameras, we have 1,800 video security cameras in Ascension, and we recently found out that about half of those have security flaws in them. So we've had to put firewall rules to make certain that no one were to ever exploit those flaws. Who thought someone could use your video camera to attack your network? But it's not only possible, it's been proven. It's just all the student staff devices. In our case, we have 23,000 students who each have a device. 17,000 and some change of those go home every day. All the cell phones and tablets that we allow to connect to our network that users have a login, but what we do is we're segmenting that network, as is stated below, to try to prevent any type of encroachment into our network from expanding where it shouldn't go. The next thing I categorize things as security tools. Our firewalls, content filters, antivirus, the access controls on the network, where you can and can't go, what documents, what systems you can and can't get to. But all of those are related to that network design that's the very next one, because all of that access control has to have some way to really segment the network, or it's not going to succeed. Probably in my opinion, the most important thing we do is the monitoring. We don't have a virus appear in Ascension Parish that we don't know about within a few minutes. If your device is compromised while you're at home and someone has set up a VPN on it where they can control it inside of our network, we know about it once you turn the device on inside of our network. Great story to make that important. We actually had an individual who had access to a great deal of money, millions of dollars, who had her device compromised at home and came into the network. And when we realized whose device that was, we immediately called them and had them close it, cleaned it, and took care of it. But that monitoring saves us, because we're not ever going to stop everything from getting in. So, those contracts I referred to earlier with all of our vendors, to give them some responsibility. And then something that I think is critical is having other people look at what we're doing and tell us how we're doing it right and wrong. I've been paying for network audits for about 18 years, and a lot of people will say I'm wasting money, but I find things I'm doing incorrect and that we have weaknesses in our network every single time I do it. And in my opinion, it's one of the best ways for me to identify what's going on in my network. I've actually gotten so ridiculous about it now, I bought the software so I can do it myself, and we now do it every couple of months instead of every 2 years. I still pay to have someone else do it every 2 years, but we do it ourselves to help increase that layer of security. And then physical security. I like to make the argument that if you give me access to anything, I'll eventually figure out a way to get into it. And so, as much as I'd like to say that we have physical security and everything on all of my servers in Ascension Parish, I don't. I have pretty good security here at the data center, but you go out in the schools and you have to fight for space in a school. I had a server a while back that I told the school repeatedly we needed to move into a more secure location. Of course, they didn't want to give up any of the more secure locations. And we had students broke into that school, vandalized it, and actually tried to destroy the video server because they could get access to it. That school has let me now move that server into a more secure location post that incident. But it's a big web of security, and I list awareness as the number one, because while I believe that it's us handing out the information is one of the easiest ways for it to get out, I also think it's the most preventable, and you have to be diligent at preventing it. That's pretty much all I had. I put a slide with some links, and NIST is actually the auditing standards that I follow. There are 2 other groups, and they're excellent. I'm not prejudiced to one. That's just the one I've been using for years. They list a set of standards and then some guidelines, some of them actually specific for education. So it's not a bad source.
Awesome. Well, Jake is absolutely a rock star in what he does. Don't let him be too humble. But one big thing that he talked about that you guys and I have talked about a bit is how do you manage the security of those student devices and those teacher devices when they go off campus? So Jake was speaking to that a little bit. He can't control what happens, what viruses go on them when they're not on his network. But as soon as they go back on Jake's network, he knows if there's something wrong and he can handle it. So that was
and we also, on all of our student devices, we actually force all of our devices to VPN back into the district and go through our security. My problem is staff and teachers who they have a button on their device that allows them to turn that off, so they can, because they want to be able to go someplace that, their excuse is that we don't already allow on our whitelisting. My guess is it's to do things that aren't necessarily educational. But because we technically allow that, they have a button that can turn off that routing back to us. And that means their stuff is no longer encrypted, and so they are now vulnerable. So I recommend against it at every meeting, but that doesn't mean they follow that recommendation.
Got it. Thank you so much, Jake. And again, he was from Ascension Parish, guys. Oops, sorry, Ian, did I skip? Okay, and now we are going to go to Ian from Iberville Parish. And thank you, sir. Take it away.
Okay, so we're talking about managing all these student devices in a non-traditional setting. So I just put a few bullets of things, to think about without trying to get too deep, because obviously just one of these things could go well over 5 minutes. And a lot of them depend on your district or your school. If you think about, do you want to have district provided devices where you can maybe lock them down a little more, or are you going to do BYOD? So that's the first thing you need to figure out. BYOD being allowing students to bring their own devices. Obviously, some security concerns there potentially. And then insurance. We were fully Mac a few years ago, and we did purchase insurance on those that covered any repairs that may pop up, cracked screens, that type of thing. And what we're finding now that we're switched to Chromebooks is that that's kind of not really not sufficient for us anymore. Cost just doesn't make sense. So we are more self-insured, and that money comes from the student leasing / insurance fee that they all pay at the beginning of the year. So we charge a $20 fee to each student that takes the device home. If the student can't afford that, then they can use a device that stays at school, but they're not allowed to take it home. And then there's a deductible depending on what the damage is, if it was intentional, basically, or if it was, just something that, wear and tear or whatever, we just pick that up. On that front, help desk, you have to see all of your students at your schools, and that looks a lot different. So you need to come up with a system that works good for you and fits your environment. Even here within each school, it looks a little different. It's pretty consistent, but you might need to make some small changes depending on how the school is and how your forms look and stuff like that. Other than that, web filtering, kind of touched on a minute ago. All of our student devices are filtered on and off site. We use Securely, which is a DNS-based web filter. And the teachers are actually filtered the same way. So we force all their traffic to a specific DNS so that all of their traffic is filtered, whether they're on or off site also. Another big thing that we do is email monitoring. So, I mean, we're not digging in their emails and personally going through, but we also use Securely for that, because that's the web filter, and it's all in one pane of glass, I guess you could say. So the student email filtering looks for, pornography, profanity, suicide prevention. It follows anything if they're mentioning they kill themselves, or even Google searching certain things that would make them at an elevated risk for suicide. We get email alerts. They go directly to our child welfare people, so they can get with the school and the counselor and look into that immediately. What do I have on the next one? Classroom management. Okay. So we use GoGuardian. There's tons of other things. Lightspeed offers something. I can't remember who the other big ones are right now, but teachers, once they get a taste of this, you cannot take it away from them. GoGuardian that we use allows the teachers to use their Google Classrooms and pull those classrooms into this system. And you can see on this picture that each student's device, their screen will pop up. So while the teacher is in class, they can see each student's screen and make sure that they're on task. And if you have to, you can even lock them down to say that you can only go during my class period, and that's all you're going to be able to do. So teachers love it. Do yourselves a favor.
I think you cut out right there, Ian, but if y'all missed it, it was GoGuardian that he's showing there.
I don't know. That's all I could come up with quickly. If you have
Well,
any questions, let me know.
thank you, sir. I'm not sure if Jenny, did you make it here yet?
I'm here.
Yay!
Sorry, I thought it was 6 o'clock.
Not at all, sweet. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your time. Go
Okay,
ahead.
you want me to go ahead?
Yeah.
Okay, so when I was asked to be part of this presentation, I just thought about a couple of years ago when I left the classroom and I became a technology coordinator at St. George Catholic School. And I really looked at the job description and I was like, I don't know half the stuff, but I'll figure it out. And so I thought about people who are pursuing this degree and what you expect when you finish with the degree and what kind of jobs will be out there, and do you want to leave the classroom, and what do you want to do, like networking, or do you want to be the person in charge of Chromebooks or all the professional development or whatever all the many hats are. So I just wanted to tell you some of the things that I do at my job. So some of the hats that I wear are I manage, I order, I fix everything I can possibly fix. So I fix a lot of hardware, and I just learn through just without YouTube. I don't know, whatever I could find. I just Google everything. I'm the testing coordinator, so I do everything for ACT Aspire. I don't order the ACT Aspire stuff, but when it comes in, I have to sort it, label it, get it out to teachers. I also have to put in all of the database of the kids into ACT Aspire. I had never worked in any kind of portal like that prior to the job, but it's okay. Online accounts, so at a lot of public schools and at schools, maybe the librarian's in charge of all the online accounts, like gizmos and textbooks and all of that. Well, I do all of that. And every company has a different way that they want their CSV files, which when I started, I had no idea what a CSV file was either. And, you just learn. And I wanted to make sure that, you think about, can you go back?
I'm sorry, I'm trying.
That you think about, if you decide to take this leap and you go for a job that's, a technology coordinator or whatever the title is with technology, don't be discouraged about all the different hats you're going to wear, because it's not like your classroom. It's not like what's happening every day. So you've designed the lesson plan and everything rolls out pretty well. You're going to deal with whatever issue arises at whatever time. And it might be 10 things at one time, and you just have to learn how to, handle everything one little bite at a time. Another thing that I do outsource, because I'm the only person at St. George, and we have 1,200 students, and so I do everything there. So anything that has to do with technology and all kinds of other things, they contact me. So sometimes I do have to outsource. So I outsource everything with networking and the security. Everything Jake talked about, probably, I outsource most of that. So I don't have to know about how all of that works. I have to know a lot of things, but you just learn what you have to learn for the position. So we outsource. Now next year I'll be at Catholic, and they have somebody who is a networker on staff, and they have somebody who's the help center on staff, which I'm glad to know, because I do all the help desk stuff, and I do a lot of things that I won't have to spread myself out in so many directions. Perhaps I may, when I get there, we'll see, because I'll have to start to learn about the budgeting, and so I'm gonna call Jake all the time. Anyway,
Jenny, most of these candidates are not in the Baton Rouge area, so can you tell them a little bit about St. George versus Catholic High?
Okay, well, St. George is a Catholic school in Baton Rouge, and it's pre-K through 8, and so we're 1-to-1 from 4th grade to 8th grade, and we have iPads for pre-K through 3rd grade. We have a computer lab, and they rolled out the 1-to-1 program the year that I started, so I've been a part of that. And like this year, we got all new Promethean boards. So like anything like that coming in, I have to learn about, and I have to just tackle it and help the teachers out the best I can, which is the next part, like make teachers happy, and
go back again, Cindy.
Make teachers happy. Oh, go back again? I thought you said make
teachers
I'm not done. Look, I have all these other hats that I wear. I haven't got to yet. Making the teachers happy is so important. You have to really put that smile on. Even if you don't feel it, you have to put it on because they are coming to you because they're overwhelmed and something doesn't work in their classroom. And so it's, they just want you to help them to solve their problems. I manage the Google admin portal. I also manage everything like with Windows, everything I can in Microsoft admin as well. This year I teach robotics because I didn't teach the first couple of years, but then I run the robotics team. So they were like, do you want to teach it? Absolutely. And I work a lot in the CSV files, which I think anyone who's going into a position in technology probably needs to master Excel. Like make sure you know the basics and some basic just formulas and whatnot, and read up on these things. All right, anything related to technology and professional development. All right, now you can go to the next slide. So, okay. So July and August are probably the busiest times for technology because everything has to be updated. So I have on here, like you have to get class lists and you have to create all kinds of CSV files from your SIS, which is your student information system, which I didn't know what that was either when I started. So it's like I learned so much. It's kind of like being a first-year teacher, a first year in a technology job. You're going to learn so much stuff, but just take it one hat at a time and learn. I mean, you obviously are lifelong learners or you wouldn't be in grad school, right? Correct. And then in August, it still continues because everybody's just getting back. So there's super, super busy times. Just remember, you are their saving grace and smile because they need you to be the backbone. They need you to be strong. Even if you don't know how to do something, just go find the answer for them and get back with them and take care of your people. Okay. And this is just a little recommendation to master Excel. I really feel like I was happy that after I graduated through the program, I still stayed in for one more semester and I took a class on data analysis. And I'm so glad I did because it refreshed my Excel. And then I really needed it. Like as soon as I got in that July, starting the job, I was like in Excel day after day after day. And so these are just some of the formulas like conditional formatting, VLOOKUP, just some basics in Excel. And I would definitely add, if you decide to do anything outside that classroom, make sure you ask for a job description and read over that and think about all of the different tasks that they're asking you to do. Because I know several people on here and, we all do different jobs every day. We're doing different stuff. So I would ask for that. And I would get Google certified if you're not already.
Yep, they do that through classes now.
Oh, good. And so, I mean, definitely level 1. Level 2 is really hard, I found. But I finished that one too. So, I mean, all of our middle school teachers at St. George are level 1 certified. And we're about to have 3rd, 4th, and 5th all level 1 certified. So it's pretty important because you learn a lot, especially if you're in a Google environment. So that's it. Just remember that, the many hats that you wear are just whatever the job entails, and think about it before you commit to a position, to make sure that if it's just PD, if that's something you don't want to do, you're looking at other avenues in the technology areas, that you're not stuck doing a job that's just one part of the big picture and all the hats.
Very well put, because your job now versus your job next year at Catholic High, although titles might be very similar, from what I've learned, your jobs will be completely different. And what Ms. Bruno was saying about looking at the job description, if you're getting a different job, it's very, very important. Okay, Mr. Wall?
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, we can.
Good.
Thank you.
All right, so I'm Jared Wall, and different than everybody else so far, I'm working at Southeastern Louisiana University. I'm one of the people who graduated from your program and am out of the classroom and can say very happy to be out of the classroom. I work at what's called the Center for Faculty Excellence here at Southeastern. So when you talk about how the IT, the technical support, and the instructional technology merge, There's an IT department at Southeastern who handles security and making sure everything works. But it doesn't stop people from calling me on faculty and saying, can you come fix a printer, or can you come fix, make the symposium work in this classroom, even though that's not my job. I'm more than happy to go do it for them. What I'm really here to do is faculty training and support. I do faculty training and support on Google for the Google tools for education. Moodle is the LMS that we're using. And since I'm teaching in a university, most of the professors here don't have educational backgrounds. So we have to actually show them what it means to teach. They're content experts, but they don't really know best practices for teaching. So I kind of share that along the way as well. And then I've also found one of my roles is to create ways to reduce time that faculty and staff spend on red tape so that they can focus on actually teaching. So I'll show you a little of that too. Can you move it forward for me? So our learning management system, you have to be familiar with that, and everything goes through Moodle. We spend here at the center, there's a staff of about 6 of us. We spend approximately 80–90% of our training and support on Moodle. We see the same 10 people out of 100 every semester, and yet people still don't know how to use Moodle. So trying to get people to the center, getting people to decide to come to training is the hard part. So my position is actually decentered. I go to the colleges and train so that they don't have to come to us. So I see a lot more people than everybody else. We have a lab that's dedicated for that, where they come in and get Moodle training or anything else that they need. Let's see what I've got here. So Moodle's required for all faculty if you have to deal with the learning management system, especially at this level when there's guidebooks on what faculty are required to do. So we make sure here at the center that every course that goes into Moodle has required elements, and you can move to the next slide here and I'll show you what those are. So if you ever have the opportunity to set up a template for your organization, the things that are required by certification that courses have, or maybe legally speaking, we make sure those are embedded in every template before those courses go live. Things like the course syllabus policy statements, your technology and accessibility guidelines, disaster recovery plans. The students have to interact with those before they can start a class. So you verify that they know those things before you ever get started each semester. There are lots of things faculty hate at this level. One of them is being told that they have to stay on deadlines with grades. And so there are certain benchmarks that they have to hit so that students know in Moodle, this is what my grade is. So we do a lot of troubleshooting a Moodle grade book at certain times of the year when those grades have to go in. And all of our courses that are hybrid or 100% online have to go through some sort of, somebody here that's certified in QM looks at them to make sure they meet quality matters. And just recently we purchased Ally, which is the accessibility tool that plugs into Moodle. So that's gonna start taking care of that as well. So you can move to the next one for me. The fun stuff that I do, well, let me talk about this first. We just moved to 2-factor authentication. Again, I don't handle the security, but I do handle training people who are dead set against using 2-factor authentication. What happens is IT says we're going to roll it out on a schedule, and the College of Nursing this week you either activate your 2-factor or you don't check your email, you can't get in. So they're rolling through the colleges with that deadline. So one of the things I do is I go to the college and make myself available to hold hands with people who are frustrated that they're required to do this and help them set it up. There aren't that many, but a lot of people don't like being forced to do 2-factor authentication, but I mean, it's a simple second step to protect student data, which we all know is a big deal. At the college campus, I learned about FERPA, and because I work closely with nursing and health sciences, I learned about HIPAA real quick as well. Google for EDU is FERPA compliant, for those of you who don't know, but it is also HIPAA compliant if you get a business associate agreement signed with Google and the university. So you can use Google Meet for counseling and for the nursing stuff as well. So all of that is taken care of with those agreements with Google. And now we're kind of rolling through these deadlines. You can hit the next one for me. So the fun stuff I do, I train on Google. I have a Google Basics course. I have a Working Smarter with Google course. I train on Polycom, which is a high-end video conference system that I maintain for the nursing and health sciences department, and I train them on that. I create websites with all of these materials with how-to videos and PDFs with step-by-step. And so that's, you see some of the places and things that I do during a given week. But the really fun thing that I do is on the next slide, and that's where I get rid of the red tape. So while I'm out running around, I run into people, say, can you help us solve these problems? So like Jenny was saying, being an Excel expert, well, I've become a Google Sheets expert. And so I've learned to code inside Google Sheets, so I can create Google form connected spreadsheets that the faculty use for student dashboards that pull in their LeoNet data, which is course data. And so you can see which students are on track to graduate without having to go plug that stuff in manually. It just kind of automates for them. I created a digital evaluation tool for the nursing department that you see at the bottom, where when they click the box to say I'm a 3 or a 4, it pops up a little symbol and lets them upload their evidence, and all of that populates and automatically scores for the department head so that he doesn't have to carry around binders of paper to evaluate people. So these are the things that on a regular basis I'm working on in my office when I'm not training. So I wear a lot of different hats as well, but the one I don't have to wear is making sure the internet works or somebody's not breaking into the internet and breaking everything. So there you go.
And one thing I want to highlight that Mr. Wall said was his different types of professional development. So in addition to this class, my students are currently enrolled in a professional development class where we're learning that doesn't have to look a certain way. It can be face-to-face, it can be videos, it can be screencasts, it can be help documents with screenshots, but most importantly, it can be all of the above, just depending on who your learners are. So, very good. Candace is up next, please.
Right. My name's Candace Bro, and I work in Iberville like everyone else. I wear a lot of hats. I have the IT that was supposed to be instructional technology and ended up just being everything, and career tech ed. So I get to do a lot of things with a lot of different people, which makes it pretty fun. But one of the things that we've really tried to do, and I'm lucky to have Ian here, because he really deals with that information technology side, is that we figured out ways to maximize some of those funds that we get, because like most schools, our budget gets cut regularly, so we have to figure out creative ways to make things work. And one thing that we found, the big thing is to think long term and not just we figured that out with some document cameras, bought some really inexpensive ones. They lasted a very short amount of time, pretty much equal to what we paid for them, which meant we just had to purchase more. And it ended up being more expensive in the long run. But that goes for any kind of device. You get what you pay for in a lot of instances. Make sure that you're getting something that's going to last, so you don't have to replace it all the time. And one thing that seems to be common sense, but some people were like, "What? You're giving me a secondhand something?" Is we had all our schools send their surplus, old computers. Well, I don't know about y'all, but it seems that the students take off all the keys as much as possible on keyboards when people aren't looking. So one of my elementary schools called, and she actually said, "Can you go look in the surplus and find some USB keyboards for me?" And I was like, "Sure." And we actually really supplied 3 campuses with keyboards to basically fill their labs with the thing. So those little things go a long way. A lot of times power cords, it's amazing why power cords disappear as much as they do. But then you find a whole box of them somewhere, and I'm not sure why this person stored all the power cords in a box and didn't give them back to anyone. But those things come in handy. So I have a box of cords, and we have a crate of keyboards and mice, and they get used even though they might be older than anything else in the campus. One thing that we started last year that has been huge for us, and as Ian said, we used to be a MAC district, is that we have begun to utilize the online public auctions. Specifically, we use Gov Deals. I'm sure there's other options to sell and get rid of that old hardware. And that has very well supplemented our budget to replace devices on campuses. That's been really, really good for us. We've done quite a few for different things, like incredibly old iPads, even brought in some money that we didn't think anything would come in at all. And another thing is to look at, we have multiple sites in our district. We have 10 sites that we purchase technology for. And when it comes to a license, sometimes it's actually cheaper if we only need a handful of schools, and sometimes to purchase per school. And at the same time, sometimes that handful of schools, it's even cheaper if we just buy it for the whole district and everyone gets something. Even though those other schools didn't need it, it still comes out as a cheaper price overall. So just kind of odd how some of those licenses work, but sometimes we find that it's cheaper to go the whole district, even though we don't need that many licenses. And the last one, and I'm sure Dr. Vavasor, I haven't called you that in a long time.
Y'all, it took her like 10 years to call me Cindy.
It was a long time. Is to pay attention for grants, that are available, but not just that, know your community partners. Tammy and I are really lucky that we have some great community partners along the river. Our districts are neighboring, if you don't know that. So we share a lot of those community partners, and they are great supports when you need new things for schools. They really do a great job. I'm going to do this. Does it work?
Ooh.
Nope.
Oh, good thing I don't
doing that again.
Good thing I don't work with technology. Okay.
All right. So we heard a little bit about, getting teachers to go to technology PD, and we had the same issue. So we tried to figure out a way that wasn't incredibly expensive, but it incentivized that PD. So we created our IPSB, our Riverville Parish Technology Incentive Plan. And what happens is when teachers attend technology PD, they earn points. And those points are used through our department to purchase technology for their classroom. So because for me, if a teacher wants to learn about new technology, I think they're the teachers that should get the new technology first, because I know they'll use it. So that's really why we created it. And how it works is teachers can either do online PD that is either provided by me or through the Google actual training site. We allow them to record their work, but with their transcript from there, and they can actually submit that to earn points also. It can be face-to-face PD. If there is a professional development opportunity outside of our district, if they let me know about it ahead of time, I'll approve it, and they can go to that, and they can earn technology points for that too. So it definitely doesn't have to be in-house. We want people learning wherever that may be. So if they're doing a webinar, we've had teachers that'll email and say, hey, there's training or a webinar on this. Can I earn tech points for that? Absolutely. And then they cash them in later. They collect them. It doesn't end year to year, so they roll over. And once they earn X amount of points, you can kind of see a sample of the list on the side. They can purchase those items for their classroom, and they have them until they leave the district. Some of those things just kind of go with the teacher, but for the most part, it's still the district property, but teachers just want something to use in their classroom, so it works out.
Thank you so much. Candace, did you create that?
We did, yes. We married it off of, we saw something similar at another district, but I don't remember where it was, and I would.
Calcasieu does it. That might have been.
So they
presented at TLS that.
Gotcha. So we took it and we kind of made it our own and said, hey, if they're doing some kind of, incentive, how do we, our district has, I think it's kind of a weird method that they pay teachers every time they go to PD, which is great, but that only works because we're a district with quite a bit of money. And it doesn't work all the time. And our technology department can't afford to fork out that kind of money every time somebody attends PD. And this way it actually win-win. We get people at PD and then they want the technology that we would have probably bought them anyway, but they just get it faster.
I love it because, again, the partner class that they're in right now, we're researching different technology incentive plans. So thank you so much. Okay, Dr. Seneca.
All right. I think probably the most used one or asked for is the electric 3-hole punch, huh? That's probably what they all want, right, Candace? Yeah, I think when I looked at that list.
Color printer by far wins out.
Exactly.
Color printer, but they make teams in their hall so they can afford it.
Yeah, I love it. That's great. That's great.
One gets the printer and the others get the toner. It's great.
Yeah. There you go. Well, I'm going to just spend a few minutes talking about something a little different than everybody else, but it's all something we have to do. And that is what we need to be doing in education is just creating relationships. So basically, if you're like me and you're a small district, you do both sides of the house. I mean, you do IT and you do ed tech as well. So let me just tell y'all, just like everybody else did, like Jenny said and everyone else did, if you don't know it, just ask. I mean, I can remember when I took over technology, it got thrown in my lap, and took over technology, calling my mom on the phone during the summer going, go to Barnes & Noble and buy a book called Networking for Dummies, because like I had absolutely no idea. Now, ed tech, I could do that with my eyes closed, but not the other part of it. So I think that's what, I have tried to do in my department. And I'm going to tell you, of everything we've done, one-to-one initiatives, cybersecurity, everything else, some of the hardest things we've done is try to get IT people to talk, period. Just talk. Trying to get them to talk to, teachers and listening to teachers and understanding that a teacher is going to be observed on Thursday. The Promethean board's not working and they're freaking out. So that's why they're sending 10 emails and not worrying about the work order system. So I think by teaching our IT people what our ed tech folks knew, that sort of helped to bridge that gap. But on the other end, y'all know as well as I do, when some of the IT people start talking, it's like Charlie Brown's teacher. Wah, 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 I mean, Jake starts talking sometimes in our LQ meetings and we're like, we get it, Jake. We get it, that kind of thing. So I think that's what's so very important about building those relationships. So both sides of the house. I'm lucky. I'm in charge of both. So I could just screw up both of them or make both of them successful. But then I know we've had other folks who's, they're in charge of ed tech, which is probably usually curriculum, and then the IT people are completely different. So it's trying to bridge that gap. And I think it kind of starts by we build our goals together. So Cindy just kind of hit enter there. I only have 2 slides. So basically kind of how I've learned how to kind of do it over the years is we build our own tech plan like we do, whether it's required or it's not required. It's coming up this year. So we have a general goal of where we want to be in 3 years. So what I do each year is I take that big tech plan and I break it down into yearly goals for my team. So we have ed tech goals, we have IT goals. Now, of course, anybody at Jake can agree with this. If you're in construction like we are right now with new buildings and everything else, some of that gets thrown out the window, but you still need to know what your goals were for both sides of the house. So that would be a great suggestion that I would do. The other one can be painful. The second bullet, I mean, I'm being honest, and I got good people. Y'all know my people. Some of you know my people. It's painful to get the 2 groups together sometimes. It has been painful because what ends up happening is ed tech says their goals, and then when it's time for IT to start talking about everything, they start talking on the side with each other because they don't understand it. And so the point is, you've got to get Jake shaking his head. He understands. So you've got to get them together. And sometimes you just have to be the mama or the teacher and go, look, pick up your phones. You got to listen, because even our ed tech people need to understand what's going on in IT. Like, it took forever. I mean, especially, we all know what happened at the beginning of the school year. We were crazy in here trying to get things rolling for school to start. And our ed tech folks are walking in going, well, this iPad won't connect the, Ian's laughing because it's happened. And it's like, you want to just gently say, I'm going to throw that iPad out the door if you don't walk out with it right now, So you've got to make sure that even the ed tech people understand that part of it. So I think we've kind of gotten to that point. I'm not saying that you still, as the leader, and you're going to have to learn how to do this, and I think everyone on this panel can agree with me. You're going to still have to know that you close the door and the IT people are going to complain about the ed tech people. Yep. And then you're going to close the door another day. You look, everybody's shaking their head. And the ed tech people are going to complain about the IT people. So you're just going to have to figure out how to build those relationships. And we've done it through like just crazy things. Like, I just buy a McDonald's breakfast sometimes to just kind of shut them up and just say, like, let's have a meeting. And if you're eating for the first part of the meeting, we get stuff done. We travel together. If you can bring your team to conferences, man, you bond really quick over a per diem meal. I can tell you, you know what I'm talking about, when you don't have to pay for it and you get to go to the fancy place. So that's another one. The other thing is you just need to kind of build friendships. Like, we've done crawfish balls at my house with just the tech team, and they bring their families and that kind of stuff. And that doesn't sound, I know some of y'all are probably thinking this woman's crazy. She's talking about crawfish balls instead of IT and ed tech issues. It's amazing how much more productive your team can be when they see that and they kind of build those relationships. And you just kind of have to share the positive moments. I mean, like, it doesn't happen too often lately in the technology department. So, like, we have red letter tech days. So in other words, we hadn't had one yet this year, but like, it's like when everything goes right and everything is positive, we'll like get on a text with each other and say, it's been a red letter day. We've had a good day. So I think you just kind of have to celebrate those moments. And I don't want to say minutia because it's what our life is, but all of the rest of it will come along if you have that strong team. Like, you will know as a leader when you have to do, and Jake's going to shake his head and so is Candace, when you look at your network admin and tell them the State Department wants you to fill out this survey that is going to take you 7 weeks of Sundays to get it done. But I really love you and I want you to take care of this for me. Do you need a Coke? I'll go get you a Coke. Something like that. So that, I think, when you build those relationships, you get more work out of folks. Because you are empowering them. So that's my spiel on having to work as a team and bringing both sides of the house together. Create that culture.
I love it. And guys, there's a very specific reason why I have Candace and Ian from Iberville and Tammy from West and Jake from Ascension. What they're doing is working, okay? They've got the IT people and the ed tech people actually speaking to one another, which is kind of a foreign concept in our field. And some of our other experts I have here trying to show you the different opportunities that are out there. And even though Miss Bruno, who's now going to Catholic High, and she will have a similar IT staff and ed tech staff to manage, she is coming from St. George where she is it. And we are about to hear from another expert where she is it. And right, Miss Bello? And hopefully that's helping.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Hi, I'm Jacqueline. I'm the technology coordinator at Our Lady of Mercy School. So Jenny and I have very similar roles. Our Lady of Mercy is a Catholic school, pre-K through 8th grade in Baton Rouge, and I love it, but I often joke that I'm the chief juggler in charge because I'm it. So anything that goes wrong, everybody's turning their heads towards me when it comes to technology. And I'm not an expert in everything by any means. I just coordinate all of it. So I was initially hired to provide professional development and teach teachers how to integrate technology into their classroom. So my background is in education. I was a teacher before this, taught in Livingston Parish, and knew nothing about networks whenever I came on board. And I was like, yeah, I can teach teachers how to do this. And then since then, my role has evolved to being in charge of everything with a plug. And so I liked that Jenny said, read your job description, but sometimes they don't have the job description because my role really has three major aspects. And I really started off in that, deep into that professional development and working with the teachers on that. But then I realized that they weren't using the technology because our network wasn't working. So I basically had to stop everything that I was doing and fix our network. And I mean, I didn't do it single-handedly. I worked with some fabulous contractors, but all of it goes hand in hand. One cannot work without the other. So I have three major aspects of my role: the professional development and training for all stakeholders. So that includes not just students and teachers, but also parents, staff, cafeteria workers, anybody that comes through our door. I'm in charge of their professional development and technology education. Okay. I also serve as our asset manager. So I manage all of our devices on campus, and the planning for all of that. I also serve as technical support, and I coordinate all of my outside support. So I contract out a lot with all of my network services. I contract all of that out. But even when I pick up the phone and do a ticket, they're like, well, can you just go reset this switch? So I've had to learn a lot about that, and I've had to become the smart hands on campus. Even though I don't know the full ins and outs of it, you've got to be ready to ask lots of questions. So if you go to the next slide, I'll kind of highlight on each of those areas. So professional development and training, that's my favorite thing. So I can talk about that all day long. I'm glad that we talked about it several times and that y'all are doing another partner class with this. And I just want to stress that sometimes you just got to throw lots of things at the wall and see what sticks. So you can't be afraid to try lots of different things. It comes in all shapes and sizes, and you have to figure out what works for your environment. So I've been here, I'm in the middle of my 6th year here, and I feel like finally in the last year, I've finally found things that work for my teachers. And my model, I've really switched to doing a more coaching model. I meet with my teachers during their team meetings during the day. The last thing a teacher wants to do is stay after school at a professional development. I learned that very quickly. And so I had to maximize my efficiency in giving them training during the day. And so they now just give me some of their team meeting time, and it took me a long time to be able to get that commitment from them. But once they realized it was worth it, it was worth their time, it's been great. We have lots of options available online at their own pace and face-to-face. So you've got to give, just like your regular classroom students, you've got to come at them from all different angles, because just like your students, all of the teachers are different learners. I have some that I have to hold their hand through it multiple times, and others that if I give them a really quick picture tutorial, they've got it in 10 steps further than that. So you're going to have all different kinds of levels, and you've just got to be patient and meet them where they're at. You've got to be ready to teach and mentor everyone. So everybody's your student. And you've got to get in the classroom. You've got to do observations. You've got to know what your teachers need. You've got to see what they need. If you don't know, if you don't see where they're at, then you're going to have a harder time providing that professional development to the teachers. And I found that out the hard way I just kind of was giving them what I needed from whenever I was teaching in the classroom. That's where I started. And I realized that some of my teachers weren't ready for that. So their eyes were glazing over, you know? So I had to kind of go back to the drawing board and really just start observing them and understanding where I needed to meet them, where their skills were, how I could enhance those skills and make them comfortable, and then push them further. I liked that they've already touched on some incentives, and being a small Catholic private school, even though we're a private school, we don't have big dollars for incentives. You know, our tuition in goes right back out to pay for our teachers' salaries. So you've got to get very creative with incentives. I really liked that it was mentioned to know your community partners. So we're very fortunate that we are nestled in a part of town that is rapidly growing with businesses. So they're very eager to donate and promote their businesses. So I get vouchers and coupons and radio bar coupons to provide incentives for a happy hour drink for them completing a training. So you've got to, and all teachers will do anything for a Gene Pass. That's all I'm saying. So you've just got to get creative with what kind of incentives you're offering, and but you've got to make it worth their while too. So I've just recently done a couple of projects. We just launched Google Classroom. We are currently redesigning our acceptable use policy, and we're launching a one-to-one iPad program this fall. So those are the things that we're currently working on. So if you have any questions about that. So asset management, that's a lot about just managing all your devices on campus, and it's all about keeping really meticulous records. Excel is your best friend. You've got to find the right tools that fit your environment. So what might work one place might not necessarily work in another, and don't be afraid to figure that out, okay? When you're coming into a new job, make sure that you take a moment to assess what's in place, and don't be afraid to submit proposals to change things and make them better. Like I said, when I first came in, I couldn't understand why all of our iPads just sat in the computer lab. Nobody wanted to use them. They just sat. And it was because our internet sucked. So they couldn't rely on it. So I had to come in and completely change all of that. So just don't be afraid to shake things up. It might be some growing pains at first, but as long as you are looking at long range planning and you have a long-term plan, getting through the hardness of the short term is definitely worth it. So technical support and support coordinator. Number one, Google is your best friend. And then screencasting is your other best friend. So I find that I can't be in 10,000 places at once. So I have a really good ticketing system in place, and I'm able to take care of as many tickets as possible through screencast. The ticket will come in, and if I can fix it via just a quick tutorial, I might already have one created, and I can shoot that to them. If you don't know the answer, Google is great. And it's really important that you develop really good relationships with your contractors. From everyone from the guy who manages the Wi-Fi system and cameras to the guy who installs the cabling. Because when you do have a problem, if you have a good relationship with them, it's easy to just pick up the phone, and they're more inclined to help you quickly if you've developed a good relationship. And I think it's just really, really important to develop those relationships, because I've had the experience of both sides. When I first came on, we had a very tumultuous relationship with our managed service provider, and everybody was tiptoeing around it, and they weren't suiting our needs, and it was very difficult. We had to break up. So, and I had to facilitate that breakup, and I've never broken up with anybody. It was hard. So that was our number one thing in finding everyone we work with has to have our vision. They have to understand and support it, because if they don't understand our educational vision and how we want to use our technology, they're not going to suit our needs. They're just not. So it's also really important that you ask questions and do your research. Fact check, look up prices on your own, because there are hidden costs everywhere. And if you're not super familiar with everything, you can very quickly have the wool pulled over your eyes. So, and end up paying double for something that shouldn't cost that much. So it's just really important to do your research, ask questions, and create good relationships. Don't forget that you're in the business of customer service. It is important to understand the word no and have your boundaries, but your attitude is everything. And like I said, you're going to get a lot farther with students, with teachers, and with those contractors if you come at it from a positive direction. No matter how negative they're being, you have to maintain that positivity, because the second you let yourself slip into that negative role, you've lost them. And to get them back is really, really hard. So I'm gonna quote my favorite, Annie, you're never fully dressed without a smile.
How true is that?
Anyway, that's me.
Well, our experts, y'all were phenomenal. Lindsay, Michelle, Brittany, and Blair, y'all had some excellent questions. We're not going to keep our experts more than about 10 more minutes. But if any of you guys want to reference the questions that we've been working on and you highlighted, go for it. Anybody?
Okay, you want to go first?
You can go first.
You go first. Okay. My question is going to be, what would be your best piece of advice to someone just moving into an instructional technology position? I mean, I know that one of you had mentioned basically reading the job description and like learning more, but like what else could you suggest?
I'll chime in on that one. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. So I think one of the most important things is to get to know your teachers. Because if you're going to be building effective and wanted instructional technology, you need to make sure that you're meeting the needs of the people in your district or in your school. And if you don't know them and know their capabilities and what they already know and what they don't, you may spin your wheels for a while and create some PD that nobody needs or nobody wants. So make sure you know them and make sure you know what the district's goals are and what their views are, or the school's goals and views, and what technology is going to best get your teachers there.
Okay.
I'll add, like Candace said, find your superstars, because they'll help you train too. I mean, there's nothing like an empowered teacher,
And the great thing is that most of these candidates that are on this meeting right now are those superstars.
Yeah.
Anyone else from the experts? Best piece of advice for a newbie?
I would say do some hand holding. That's how I've developed some of the best relationships that I have, and some of my teachers that are more apprehensive that are no longer apprehensive, because we developed that trust and that they knew that I wasn't going to let them fall and I was going to give them what they needed. So spend as much time as you can creating those relationships with teachers is really important, because then you do find your superstars you can leverage, but also bring those other friends along that might be a little bit more timid, but as long as they trust you, they're going to perform for you.
I'm going to ditto that hand holding just a bit. In Ascension, in our model, our trainings are followed up by an offer to have the trainers attend that teacher's class and actually either watch the teacher do it or model it for the teacher. And we offer that with all of our trainings. And that hand holding wins us a ton of goodwill and good effort from the teachers.
That's awesome.
I have one too as well. My question was, in your opinion, how long does it take to see success with one-to-one technology in the classroom? In my parish right now, we are very far behind on the technology phase. Like, we don't have one-to-one technology and stuff like that. So I'm just kind of curious to see, like, how long does it take to actually see success when you do move to technology?
I'll jump on that one, Cindy. One thing is, I don't think you can, I mean, I hate to say this, I don't think you're going to ever be able to 100% say it was because of technology, because there's so many other teaching strategies and things that just come along with good teaching, that the technology is basically just a tool for it. So I think what you need to look at is, how is the technology changing that kid that always ends up in clinic by 4th hour, but he wants to be there at 6th hour to do the science project on the computer. So I think you have to look at it from that point of view, that you are providing these students with a different tool, and it's still going to always fall. Technology will never be trumped by a good teacher. So I think you have to make sure that you're always keeping that in your head, and I have to keep thinking that all the time too.
One of my favorite slogans is that a computer cannot teach. A computer can help a student to learn, but a computer does not teach. Good teaching doesn't change because of we're using a computer. A computer is that tool. And in my opinion, as long as we strive to minimize the disruption of the technology, all right, the teachers with our support will learn how to use it effectively and enhance things.
That's it.
I mean, we've implemented one-to-one, you know, over a number of years, and I think that's also one of the keys. Try not to take on too big of an effort at first is often a problem. You're better to start small, figure it out, talk to people who have done it. You know, I learn every day how I can do one-to-one better. I still meet every year with a committee of students from the different grade levels. I meet with committees of my teachers to hear from them what worked and what didn't, because it's going to be better next year than it was this year. And that is always our goal. But I would argue we've been successful from the word go, because you've never seen a drop off in Ascension schools scores and our student scores since we started our technology initiative. But now we have more certificates earned, more people ready for jobs. We've actually set up a channel that provides the jobs, hires them as student workers. And 2 years ago, we had 108 student worker interns in technology. You know, it's been a success, but it had to be a slow roll. We started with 100 devices. You know, these districts that try with 5,000, I look at them and go, how? I just can't even imagine.
There's a bad word in education called failure, but you have to embrace failure to use technology. Teacher, you have to cultivate build a culture where it's okay for a teacher to use it and it not succeed the first time. And then when they learn to succeed with it, they'll use it. And part of that is going into that classroom and being there to support that first time. So if you're asking them to take that initiative and you get in the classroom with them, they're more likely to do it. But you have to embrace failure, and we hate that word because we want everybody to succeed. But you learn from those failures, so we got to learn how to do that as well.
Okay, one or two last questions from my candidates.
Michelle,
Go ahead.
Hey.
all right, I'll go. Do you think, does it run more smoothly when there's a technology coordinator on schools, like on the campuses daily? Like, would you find that more beneficial for there to be a technology coordinator on each campus, or like just jumping from like a school to school?
Jenny, go ahead.
I have to jump in on that one because I was in the classroom for so many years. I used everything, anything with technology, I used it in my classroom. And I always looked and I said, wow, there should just be somebody on every campus. And then I became that person. So there are some places that do have support every day on staff. But I mean, I'm in a private school, so they can afford to do that. It's part of their budget. I think it will come in time when budgets allow over, as technology just continues to grow. But, that's hard for school districts like Ascension and the other school districts to be able to afford a person on every campus. Is it beneficial? Well, of course it is. Can it happen in a budget? Probably not likely.
We die without the interns. Our interns are a huge help to us.
But I also think if you have a philosophy that everybody agrees with in your school system about technology, that goes a long way. Like I have one really half person that does ed tech for me now because I lost my other person. And so we still are rolling, but it's all in what the priority is. So I agree with Jenny. Would it be great? Absolutely. But you can't use it as an excuse to not get it done. You've got to say, okay, how can we make it work with what we have?
And there will be teachers who pick up the torch.
Oh, absolutely.
I worked in Tammy's school.
Yeah, so I'd say Jared used to be one of mine.
There's always somebody who will help you do it as a teacher.
Absolutely.
I used to fix everything, like anything Elmo's, I can't set up my Elmo here. Okay, I'll come do it. And that's why I knew that leaving the classroom and helping the teachers was the direction I needed to go in. So, you know, teachers will help teachers, and the technicians can help as much as they can, but teachers also need to become self-sufficient. They need to learn how to update their computers and, you know, make sure the printer's plugged in and little things like that. So they have a learning curve as well. It's their domain. And, you know, there's some little things that teachers just have to learn by doing themselves.
Okay, I'm gonna say two more because I saw Kristen wanted one and Michelle wanted one.
So real quick, all of our media specialists get a small stipend.
Oh, that's a good point.
And they are also technology facilitators. And on my side, at least, it helps us out a lot because they're able to cut off the easy things like, you know, basically my Elmo's plugged in backwards, or, you know, they're able to find the quick little things like that. And so it helps us out a lot. And I know it helps Candace out too, because they're able to do, you know, basic trainings on campus. I don't know if you had anything to add to that.
Okay, Kristen, go ahead.
I often consider whether getting some computer science training or certifications would be beneficial in my position in instructional technology. Have any of you done such things?
Let me preface this with they come out with state add-on certifications of EdTech Facilitator, EdTech Leader, and they also have to get Google's Level 1 and Level 2 certified. So she's referring to in addition to that.
Oh, in addition, meaning just computer science itself?
Right.
I mean, understanding coding, I think most of y'all would agree, that's in the trenches, is basically, I mean, shoot, you could go to code.org and know what you need to know and go through that process to help. Would I spend a whole lot of time on just computer science? I wouldn't. I don't know if anybody else would disagree.
I would look for some micro creds somewhere if you just were interested in something.
Yeah, just something like that. But as far as purely teaching that type of stuff, like the old-fashioned way, a lot of that is kind of going out, and you're seeing more things like coding through robotics, coding apps, coding those types of things. So that kind of goes to what Jared said. If you get some of those smaller credentials like that, then that would cover it.
And we'll get
I know how you can look at
coding in 509, guys.
Yeah.
And like in my scenario, in the 20 plus years I've been doing this, I've taken a lot of courses for certifications, including Cisco CCIE, but I don't use it on a daily basis. Mm-hmm. And I never took the test because it's $500, and they're not going to give me a raise for it. So, you know, but I am glad I know it, and it's helped me and it's helped other districts. So if you have the inclination and you're interested, and like in my case, I was doing a large voice over IP project that there wasn't good support around me for, so I had to become that support. Mm-hmm. So if you're on the edge of something like that, we refer to it as bleeding edge, and I bled a lot. You know, you do what you need to do to support what's going on in your school. But I would never recommend to a new ed tech person that they should take the CCIE course. It's a year of your life, similar to or worse than most university 2 semesters.
So I'll add to this. This is something I've also considered doing myself, because I at times get frustrated that I don't know all the ins and outs of networking, and I'm relying on someone else. I'm trusting them to get it done for me. So I personally, I just haven't had the time to do it. So the way I've kind of, and like Jake said, they're not going to give you a raise for knowing it, and you're already paying these people to do it. So the way I've kind of reconciled that is that in everything that we install and everything that we do, I include a tutorial and training for myself. So I make my contractors that I work with sit down with me and explain exactly what they're doing. So that way I can understand the basics of what's happening on my campus, because it all bleeds into one another. And so it's really important that you do have a basic understanding of that, to help you manage it, to get the right people in place whenever you're trying to troubleshoot. So I include that on everything that I'm doing. So if you're entering into a new job, get to know your contractors that you work with and have them teach you. They can sit down and teach you, and trust me, makes their jobs easier if you're another set of smart hands on the campus to help them. So that's kind of how I've reconciled it myself.
And if you remember to put 2 to 4 to 6, depending on how complicated it is, of hours of knowledge transfer in your request for purchase, nobody even notices that you did it. I do that on almost everything. All right, so it gets the vendor for free to me, because I've already taken it out of the budget as part of that purchase, to go ahead and give us training on site for whatever the system is. I include that in almost every project and base it upon how complicated the system we're installing is.
And it goes back to reading that job description. If you're looking at something where they're saying you got to be the network specialist and you don't know it, you might not want to apply for that job. But I guarantee you there's IT people who are not running out to get an alt cert in education so they can talk to the teachers. So
Yeah.
Boy, that was well put, Jerry.
That was.
Awesome. Okay, last but not least, Michelle.
All right, my question is, how much time do you spend on actually doing professional development versus how much time do you spend researching and developing the best technology practices for teachers?
Does anybody want to go first? I think we spend a whole lot more time planning the training than actually physically in their training with it. Like, we are already planning for a 2-day training that's going to happen in July. Mm-hmm. And because we want to make, we have specific, you said the magic word, best practices, or magic 2 words, because we want to make sure their time is precious, our time is precious. So to me, you spend a whole lot more time developing what's really good, and that's going to be something they can take back and use, than really just, like when the days come, it's just like, oh, okay, it's not as big as it is just the planning. That time takes a lot more.
Even when we're hiring consultants, we have several meetings with them in advance that, by the way, we're usually having to pay for to train them to be our trainers. And so it really gets to be entertaining, because you're spending money in planning, not just sitting around the table, because I don't have any training staff actually in the department. So we use teachers, but then for my planning hour events, we hire a third party to do it, and we'll actually sit with them for the first 5 or 6 they do till we feel we're ready to hand that individual off to be one of our paid for trainers, just because it's so critical. The black eye there from a bad event takes forever to recover from. So you have to make sure you're ready for what's going on.
And like, go to your go-to ed tech people. Get Eric Scheninger's book. Get Weston Kisnick's book. Get George Kuros's book, The Innovator. I see smiling faces because they're probably sitting behind y'all on the shelf. Those are your go-to people that if you make that who you're working and using to plan that training, then you're not going to get a black eye, like what you're saying, Jake. Yeah.
And we've all been in professional developments where we remember the book.
Oh, absolutely.
Every teacher.
Yep. Absolutely.
FYI, what's going on here right now is we're repairing a water line that burst when I ran out of here about 35, 40 minutes ago in the data center, about 6 feet from my servers.
Lovely.
So I have plumbers now here. That's why I went to go let them in a second ago.
Are you cooling a nuclear reactor around those?
And he had a network security breach earlier, scare.
It's been a, yep.
Yeah,
He had.
but Red Letter Day yesterday was one of those days. Yesterday was an almost perfect day, and today is the exact opposite.
Well, experts, we cannot thank you enough for this hour and a half of your precious, precious time. I cannot teach these candidates what this panel can teach them. So I can't thank you enough.
I'm gonna pull up one of the pals in a minute.
Yeah.
Sorry.
On the job training.
Water lines.
Thank y'all. We appreciate the invitation. It's been fun.
We appreciate
It's been fun.
And if it's okay with you, we're going to share this with past EDTL candidates so they can learn from you. We're going to put y'all's email addresses on our Moodle page so that we just started talking about building your personal learning network so they can follow all you guys on Twitter and other social media. And we just really appreciate y'all. So I'll be in touch. Thanks again, guys.
Right. Bye, guys.
And Anaheim,
Bye. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
This was a long, wonderful meeting, and I can't thank y'all enough for your professionalism and your diligence. I hope y'all got as much out of this as I did. I think those experts were awesome. So I'm gonna let y'all go for the night because it was a long day, but I will be in touch in the morning.
Thank you, Dr. V.
Bye. Thank
Have a
you.
great day.
You
Bye.
too.
Thank you.